Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Today on the program.
It's all systems go for the second Bangsamoro Plebiscite.
There's no increase in the number of hotspots. Clearly, they are not expecting any great disruptions.
This amid security concerns in the region.
It's just parang pangtakot lang talaga, so the people will not go out because they know that in those municipalities, no will win.
Also, the Commission on Elections wants to monitor social media campaigns ahead of the 2019 midterm polls.
Medyo mahihirapan talaga kami dito. Challenging yan. Certainly, this has never been done before.
And what are the consequences of premature campaigning? Comelec Spokesman James Jimenez joins us live. And later, scientists are amazed on how this island was formed. Find out on today's In Focus.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Pinky Webb. The second Bangsamoro Plebiscite pushes through amid security concerns in the region following the Jolo, Sulu blasts and in other areas in Mindanao. The Comelec says the government is ready to secure the polls. It is also hopeful to repeat the success of the first plebiscite. Also, from biography TV features to social media posts, we get to know the Comelec rules on premature campaigning. Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have Comelec Spokesperson James Jimenez. Director, welcome to the show. I know you've been very, very busy. So much on your plate right now.
Well, we do have the plebiscite right now, and the national elections coming up in May. So yeah, there's a lot of work.
The plebiscite, it's voting is supposed to start from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Right.
What's your update so far?
As of 8:30, 100% of the polling precincts have opened in Lanao and North Cotabato, which already makes it better than the one in January, because in January we had precincts that opened as late as 11 a.m. So as of 8:30, we have 100% functioning precincts, and it bodes well for the rest of the day.
Even if there were, some sort of a threat, sir, 3 IEDs are blast in Lanao del Norte.
That's actually what makes it very remarkable, is that despite news yesterday that teachers were being threatened not to participate, everyone showed up. And people are showing up in the polling precincts. Early in the day, the earliest voters were women and senior citizens even. So the excitement is palpable, and maybe the tension, while it's there, is not dampening their enthusiasm.
You know, we're so, well, in Manila, we're so detached from what is actually happening there. When we look at the big picture, look at Lanao del Norte, there's so many areas there, because sa Lanao del Norte, there are 7, yes. Oh, 6 towns. 6 towns in Lanao del Norte. Marami po yung towns talagang napakalayo.
Yes.
Na they use even trucks to transport the teachers and the paraphernalia.
Right. Earlier this morning, starting at around 3:30 a.m., distribution of paraphernalia was undertaken in Tubod, no? And in order for the teachers to feel safe going to wherever they were going to serve in the precincts, they were actually accompanied by PNP escorts. So at least that level of cooperation we're seeing now with the PNPs is very good, and it is contributing a lot to the feeling of security that the teachers are enjoying.
When you talk about teachers, let's go back to the first plebiscite, January 21.
Sure.
Was it? There was a problem in one of the areas.
Yes.
The teachers did not show up because of fear for their lives, and you're saying this didn't happen this time around.
Despite the presence of threats, reported threats, no, it didn't happen. We were able to open on time.
7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Will there be any adjustments or flexibility in terms of possibly
Right now,
extending?
we're not looking at any need for that. So we expect to finish by 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock officially, but of course, if people are there at 3 o'clock, then we will continue with the elections until they're done. So
the usual until they are in line, no?
Yeah, if they're in line, they're going to be accommodated. So we're going to look at an actual end of voting probably around 4 o'clock.
And possibly results in a couple of days?
In 4 days.
Faster than the first one?
Probably going to be faster, yes.
Was there any adjustment that needed to be done this time around compared to the first plebiscite?
Primarily, we had to make sure that all of our alternates were all prepped. because that was the main source of the problem in Cotabato City, where there was a sort of discrepancy in the statistics being reported.
Yeah.
And the reason for the discrepancy was that the person preparing the report wasn't actually very well trained, because he was a pinch hitter, someone who came in at the last moment because some teacher had failed to show up for work. So we had to adjust our training regimen to make sure that everyone, even the understudies, were like totally prepared. Thankfully, we haven't had to dip into that reserve.
Really?
This time, yeah.
You haven't dipped into the pinch hitters?
No.
That's very good to hear.
Yes.
Okay, we want to kind of understand what is
Sure.
going to happen. We have a sample ballot from Director James Jimenez, and maybe just also to show it to the public. Is this second plebiscite a little bit more complicated than the first one?
Well, I wouldn't know. It's a little more complicated in the sense that when you're canvassing separately for each of the towns or barangays within a particular jurisdiction. For instance, the sample ballot that you're holding, this is, I think, for Midsayap.
Midsayap, North Cotabato.
Yeah, and there are 13 barangays in Midsayap.
Okay.
So the 13 barangays, all of them are petitioned to join the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. So
Barangay lang yan, okay.
oo, barangay lang yan. So if, for instance, you're from barangay, what is that? Damatulan.
Damatulan, the first one.
Okay. If you're from barangay Damatulan and you're voting in that section, you're voting as a member of that barangay. So the question for you is, do you want your barangay to join the Bangsamoro?
To vote for the approval, write the word yes or oo.
Yes.
In the blank after the
Oo.
question. To vote for its rejection, write the word no or hindi. In the
Or
blank.
the equivalent in the local dialect. What you can't do is you can't check or make an X mark or whatever. You can't make any symbol there or any sign. No matter how clear it makes your intention, it has to be a yes or a no. The actual word, yes or no. So again, the complication stems from the fact that you are canvassing it, basically from 2 points of view. Both from the point of view of a member of the unit
Barangay.
wanting to join,
Damatulan, for example.
Matulan,
Okay.
and the mother unit, Midsayap. Midsayap has to be asked as well. So when you're voting for the other barangays, when you're in fact from Matulan, you are voting as a member of the mother unit, but not as a member of your barangay.
Okay, let's show that again up on the screen. So it's because I'm also a little bit confused
it
with
can be
this
confusing.
one. So if
Yeah.
we show that on screen, yung number one, we
Yeah.
can pause there. That number one says, payag ba kayo na isamang barangay Damatulan, Midsayap, Damatulan, Midsayap, Hilagang Cotabato sa rehiyong otonomo ng Bangsamoro? Pag ang isagot po nila is
Yes.
where do they go after that?
They have to reply to all of the other questions.
Hanggang number 13.
Hanggang
2, 3,
number
4.
13. All 13 blocks you have to reply to.
But even if you're not a
Even if you're
resident
not.
of that barangay.
Yes. Dito papasok yung sinasabi nating dalawang concepts. Both as a resident of the unit that wants to join and a resident of the mother unit of that barangay.
Which is Midsayap.
Which is Midsayap.
Got it. Okay. And in Midsayap, there are 13 barangays.
Right.
Is it possible that you answer yes to one and then
No to others?
no to others?
Absolutely.
Pwede rin yun.
Absolutely.
And then, Director, ang mangyayari ho dito, kailangan
Well,
ang sagot, pagbilangan,
the shortcut that we say is that you need a double majority.
correct.
You need to have a majority of the votes in the unit
Barangay.
that's wanting to join, the barangay, and from the mother unit, allowing that barangay to join. So if it's a yes and a yes, then you're in. If it's a yes and a no, or a no and a yes, then it doesn't happen.
Okay, Cotabato. Now, let's look at North Cotabato, the towns participating in today's plebiscite. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. Ito nga yun,
Yes.
yung sinasabi ni Director James na, the one we showed is just Midsayap. Meron pa nung
Yes.
Alyusan, Carmen, Cabacan, Pikit, Pikawayan.
But I think for North Cotabato, Midsayap is the longest ballot, 13.
Ganun ba? Siya yung may pinakamaraming
Siya may
barangay, ibig
pinakamarami.
sabihin.
No, I'm sorry, Pikit pala. Pikit ang
North
pinakamarami.
Cotabato.
Kasi sa Pikit, I think they have 23.
Mas mahaba nga yun. Definitely.
In fact, one of the issues yesterday was that the ballots in Pikit were so large that we could only fit 150 ballots inside the boxes. So we had to improvise just to make sure that we only made one trip from the distribution center of the supplies to the polling place. But other than that, there's been no problem really. But yeah, again, that's an issue there. If you have 23 barangays on the ballot, then you can imagine how big that ballot is going to be. It's like a tabloid almost.
Oo nga, ano. Director, paano ho kunwari ang sagot nga is yes sa isang barangay? Kunwari po, ang sagot, let's say, out of the 13 barangays, sumagot siya ng yes. 1 to 6, for example, tapos no, 7 to 13. Does that make the vote a little strange? Obviously, right?
Well, maybe and maybe not. See, the thing is, when you're voting, if you're voting for the inclusion of a barangay that is not your own,
correct.
Okay, you could be saying that, you know what, this barangay, this other barangay might be better off if it stays with the mother unit. Or maybe you're saying the mother unit can't live without that barangay. So it is possible. It is possible. Individual preferences, of course, have to be taken into account. But in general, people normally just, you know.
Yeah, if it's a yes.
If it's a yes for
everything, it's going to be yes all the way.
Everyone. Yeah.
And if it's a no, it's going to be a no all the way.
Also.
Because I guess I asked that question, directors, because why would I say I would like to join in where I am as a resident of a barangay, and in another barangay, I will say no when I'm not actually a resident there.
Baka ayaw mo yung barangay na yun. You don't want to be neighbors with them or something. I don't know.
You want, gusto mo siyang i-out.
Gusto mo siyang i-out. That's possible. That's certainly possible. But again, for the voters there, the question really is, will we be better off if we're with Bangsamoro? Diba?
Gusto ba natin sumali doon?
Exactly, exactly. And that's also the decision you're wanting to make for the other barangays, for your neighboring barangays.
So, kailangan yes ang barangay mo at kailangan majority din yung, let's say, 13 barangays in
dapat yes din sila lahat.
Oo, para masama yung Mid-Sayap doon sa barn, para pumasok siya.
Yes.
In other words. Okay, and that was just an example in North Cotabato, and of course there are also 6 towns in Lanao del Norte. So, are there any more causes for concern, sir, in today's plebiscite?
Well, the biggest cause for concern really is that coming into the elections is that there would be a spillover of the violence from other places. And late yesterday afternoon, it seemed that these concerns were coming true, right? There was a bombing in Lanao. But so far, none of those fears have actually translated into actual disruption at the polling places. But we're continuing to be watchful about how things develop. Again, it's very early in the day, so we don't know what will happen around midday.
Just as a last question on this topic, sir, members of the MILF and those opposing, are they allowed within the area of the voting centers?
Well, so far they have been allowed. That's why there's an augmentation of the police presence in voting centers. We're learning from our experience in Cotabato, where, again, the presence of these gentlemen might be innocuous. Well, ladies and gentlemen, actually, I should say, might be innocuous, but their sheer number exerts a kind of intimidating influence on people who are differently minded. So we're watching out for that. Again, making sure that these are non-combatants. They're not there in the capacity as soldiers of whatever cause they're fighting for, simply to, you know, to promote the vote, whether for or against it. But that's certainly you know, an area that bears close watching.
We'll be taking a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Still to come, the Commission on Elections says, do not vote for so-called epal politicos. What are the consequences of premature campaigning? This we really need to talk about. Comelec spokesperson James Jimenez will still be with us after the break. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, Comelec spokesperson James Jimenez. We are going to talk about the midterm elections that is in May. Just to differentiate, Director, the election season and the campaign season.
Yes.
Tell us more about that. Okay.
The election season is when all of the bans start taking effect, right? So you have your gun ban, you have your ban on movement of personnel, etc. But this is not the campaign season. The election season simply is the preparatory stage for the elections themselves. The campaign season starts later than the election season starts. So before the campaign season starts, even if you are already within the election period, premature campaigning is still not prohibited. Premature campaigning, obviously, by definition, it's campaigning that happens before the start of the campaign period. We all remember a time when premature campaigning was punishable by law, but it no longer is. That's the problem. And because it no longer is, then it becomes a source of disgruntlement from everyone. And most of that disgruntlement is aimed at us, at Comelec.
Director, why is it not a violation anymore?
It's not a violation anymore because Republic Act 9369 basically says that when you file your certificate of candidacy, you're only doing so for the purpose of getting on the ballot.
Okay.
And that you are not officially a candidate until the campaign period starts.
Which is, let's start, so it's more specific, February 12 for
February
national.
12.
Diyan muna tayo. Ibig sabihin, Mr. A filed his certificate of candidacy in October. And from October until before Feb 12, he can do
anything.
Absolutely anything.
Yes, he is, for all intents and purposes, a private citizen that you know will run for office. But that's all. You know he's going to run for office, but there's also the possibility that he won't actually. Like on the day of the campaign, he says, well, you know, I'm out.
Withdraw.
Look at what happened to the former spokesperson, Harry Roque. When the final certified list of candidates came out, the first thing he did was to pull out, right? And the same thing can happen theoretically, even the day before the campaign period. So, to some extent, there is some wisdom in that provision of law, except that the unintended consequences is that it created a loophole. And the loophole is that premature campaigning is now technically not punishable by law.
It's not a violation.
It's not a violation.
Siya bawal.
Oo, hindi siya bawal.
Let's bring
Kadiri siya, pero hindi siya bawal.
Sa'yo na galing. So, ibig sabihin, Director, pwedeng maglabas ng posters, pwedeng maglabas ng TV ads, radio ads. Pwedeng kahit ano on social media.
Pwede maglabas ng pelikula ng buhay mo.
Katulad ni, let's name him, General Bato, di ba?
And he's not the only one. I mean, like some made-for-TV productions are delving into the life stories of particular candidates. Again, since this is all coming out before Feb 12, there's really nothing anyone can do about it.
Director, ang ibig sabihin nun, kapag nangyari yon, kasi sinabi mo, like, lalabas sa television, I know that is a former SAP Bongo. There's nothing wrong in naming them because that's what we know. Ibig sabihin ba nun, may advantage lang sila, pero wala silang pagkakamali.
Wala silang pagkakamali, pero meron silang advantage. And certainly with TV being as pervasive as it is, as influential a medium as it is, you know, a lot of people are concerned that having this means of reaching out to the public available to some and not to others, it unbalances the playing field.
That's where I wanted to go, because it becomes very unfair, especially for those who may not have the money, may not have the connection.
Look, right now we have 63 candidates. And
for senator, sir.
For senator, more than half of those are names that you've never heard of before. They're new entrants into the political game. All of them are principled men and women, but they don't all have the same level of access to these resources. So, if they're not making themselves felt now, if they're not generating awareness about themselves now, while in the meantime, their opponents who are well-connected are generating tons and tons of recall, then you can see how, in the end, the elections will not be entirely fair. So that's the problem with premature campaigning. That is the main issue that we have with premature campaigning, is that it skews the playing field in favor of those with access, in favor of those with connections.
Basically, so you're saying, it's unfair?
It is very unfair.
Okay.
And in fact, we're
that's
working...
not your fault.
That's
not the Comelec's fault.
Except that when it comes to managing public expectation, you know, people forget that.
Kasi we're going to run to the Comelec and say, Comelec, bakit may ganito to?
Exactly.
Bakit pinayagan si ganon?
Exactly.
Sa inyo din talaga pupunta
Sa amin bumabalik. But just to reassure everyone, there is a pending bill that will correct that, that will close the loophole.
Let's find out who's the author of this.
Senator Dick Gordon.
Okay.
He filed an amendment to Republic Act 9369, which he authored also, saying basically that a person who files a certificate of candidacy will be considered an official candidate at that time.
Let's say in October, once he files.
October.
Ano na siya,
So
official
if he's an official candidate in October, that means from October to whatever the campaign
Feb
period
12,
is,
like this one.
hindi siya pwedeng mangampanya.
Kasi premature campaigning.
Kasi premature campaigning
Kasi
na yun.
ngayon, hindi pa sila official
Exactly.
candidate. Got it. Okay. So moving on Feb 12, that starts the minutes per candidate. Can you
Yes.
tell us more about that? Okay.
Under the law, you're required to stay within a sort of cap on your broadcasting minutes, no? But since the broadcasting time limits are pegged to a per station basis, it's pretty illusory at this point. You know, sa dami ng television stations, you're counting 120 minutes per station. You know, you probably can't spend that much money anyway. Also, there is
so
another
120 minutes
per TV station.
Any commercial, sir? Any guesting?
No.
Tama.
Okay, we have to nuance that. You're talking about guesting. You have news programs and you have non-news programs. No? For the news programs, in general, you wouldn't call it guesting. You would interview them as a resource and all of that. If the interview is newsworthy, if their appearance there is part of the news, then yes, that's not going to be counted. But if your appearance on television is not news related, it's not newsworthy, and taken as a whole, probably, you know, only for the purpose of endorsing you, then that is considered broadcast
Director,
advertising.
if I were to have the source interview senatorial candidates, as much or as many as possible, does that fall under news?
No,
or
it
non-news?
doesn't. All you have to do is really inform the Comelec that you've invited everyone, and that these are the ones who decided to show. Because when a news program such as yours, as excellent as it is, sends out an invitation, you're not going to get 100% response, right?
Correct.
They're not all going to want to come. So that's not your fault. What matters is that you invited everyone. You made this platform available to everyone.
Do I have to invite all 63?
Oh, 62.
I have to send
62 now.
letters to-
62.
O nga pala, wala na si Sec Harry. So, okay, to be clear, according to Director James, you will not subtract this from any of their minutes.
No.
Okay, that's already a...
So come to the source.
Come to the source, because we need to get to know you better, even if they talk about their platforms and their stand on particular issues.
It's actually very important that we have outlets such as this to give this sort of, well, it's not formally an exemption, but you know, in how the law operates, it's important because it gives the public an opportunity to listen in depth to what these candidates have to say.
Right.
Remember, if you see an ad for a candidate, it's 30 seconds long, what can you get? All you can get is a slogan.
The jingle.
A slogan, a jingle, probably some good visuals. But that's not a lot of things to decide on.
Okay.
So it's good that you have programs like this.
So it's 100 just to be clear again, 120 minutes. Ibig parang lumalabas talaga to advertisement, sir, di ba?
Yes.
Yung kanilang commercial.
Ang tutok talaga ng prohibition na yan is for paid advertisements.
Okay. Tapos, meron pang radyo. Iba pa yan, sir.
180 yan for
180. Per station also.
station din
Okay.
yan.
Now let's go to this. This is new. Social media.
Yes.
Paano yun?
In 2016, we saw how incredibly powerful social media was. And we knew that moving forward, it would only get more powerful and that people would actually start using it more. Now, the concern there was not so much what they said on social media, but in how much money they could hide in social media. The problem with social media is that throughout the campaigns since 2010, when social media was starting to make its appearance felt, no one was actually reporting social media expenses, but we saw them becoming more and more useful, social media becoming more and more useful, and people devoting more and more resources to it, obviously, but not reporting any of it. So kailangan natin gumawa ng regulations to make sure.
What is your
that we
rule
get
on
that.
social media?
The rule now is that you have to register your social media presence so that we know where to start looking at the ads that you put out.
Give me an example, sir. You can use any...
Let's say
senator.
I'm running for office.
Okay.
I will have to tell Comelec that jamesjimenez.com is my official website, and that I have social media pages, Facebook, and so on. What that does for Comelec is that it allows Comelec to look into my dashboards and to actually check my ad spend. Whenever you spend on, say, a boosted post, or an advertisement on Facebook, you're going to have to do that through your dashboard. As your account holder. So you do that through your dashboard, and it logs all of the minutes that you advertised, as well as how much you spent.
Sorry, sir, but why will I have to tell you that I have a website? Then I just won't tell you.
Well, that's why there's a regulation. Because if you don't, then that would be an election offense, because social media is part of mass media, and Comelec is empowered to regulate mass media.
So does this mean that every candidate should register with a Comelec their what?
Their official social pages.
So lahat. So kung sabihin nila na Senator so-and-so, this is my Twitter account?
Yes.
Official pala.
This is my official Snapchat, official Instagram, official everything.
Okay. So now, on the flip side, let's say I'm a celebrity, sir, for example, and then in my social media, I keep reproducing, publishing, airing commercials of Senator James, for example.
Right.
Does that count against the candidate?
No. What that does is it alerts Comelec to look at how much money is being spent there. There is no limit in terms of for social media in terms of the frequency that you put out the ads. Not like, for instance, on television or radio, where you have the time limits. In print, where you have the publication limitations, like you can't publish more than 3 times a week, I think. But on social, in social, there's no such limitation. So you can put out as many materials as you want, except that if you boost any of these posts, if you pay for an ad that will push these posts to people who are not your followers otherwise, then that will be recorded and that will be part of your social.
Last question, is there a department that is looking into this, a specific
My department is.
I just said your plate is full. All right, so well, good luck, sir. I wish we had more time to talk about this. Thank you for joining us here on The Source. Director James Jimenez, and good luck today and, of course, leading up to the May 19 elections. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines. Thank you for joining us.